Excellencies, colleagues, sisters and brothers, members of the Group of 77 and China. It is my pleasure to address you today, almost a month after the conclusion of COP27, hosted by Egypt in Sharm el-Sheikh, which was held in a very challenging international climate. However, multilateralism eventually emerged triumphant, and the Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan will remain a hallmark for ushering in the era of implementation. As we are all aware, the past 2 years have been particularly challenging globally, but especially to members of our group of developing countries due to a confluence of geopolitical tensions, food and energy crisis, which aggravated a slow and uneven recovery from the shocks caused by a global pandemic and an increasing debt burden for many of our countries. All of this was further compounded by the impacts and challenges emanating from climate change, with devastating impacts most recently in Pakistan, Nigeria, South Africa, and many small island developing states, which represent a major burden to our countries and communities, not only because of the loss of development gains achieved over the last decade, but also due to the extra burden to build back and recover. Excellencies, despite these challenges, Egypt's presidency of COP27 was clear from the very beginning that the climate crisis will not wait, and that any delay in action would make it less effective and more costly. We also stressed that the global community must rise to the occasion and show leadership, and that the current global challenges should not become a pretext for inaction or backtracking. This necessitated that we collectively shift our attention to urgent action on the ground, to higher ambition and effective implementation. It also meant that we should act based on what science is telling us and on the basis of our agreed guiding principles in the Convention and Paris Agreement, in a balanced manner, aiming at achieving climate justice and delivering at scale and speed on climate action. With this in mind, the Egyptian presidency and myself as COP president were committed to delivering outcomes that respond to the urgency of the climate threat, namely to ensure that despite the challenges, we must ensure observing the Paris Agreement temperature goal, including by keeping the 1.5 degree within reach, that we deliver a robust mitigation work program, that we make meaningful progress on the global goal on adaptation, that we start working on the new collective quantified goal on finance, and most importantly, that we ensure a space on the global climate agenda to discuss the long neglected issue of funding for loss and damage. We are pleased to see that together we all achieved all of that and much more. The mitigation work program has been delivered in addition to launching a work program on just transition. The global goal on adaptation is on track. Discussion on the new collective quantified goal on finance are underway, in addition to strengthening the call for international financial institution reform that responds to the climate-related needs and goals. And not only have we secured an agenda item on funding loss and damage, but we also succeeded in adopting the historic milestone of establishing funding arrangements by 2024. Most importantly, this was done while maintaining an element of equity and balance. For too long, our developing countries have been called upon to shoulder a disproportionate burden. Our global climate regime has evolved in an inequitable manner where demands for more ambition in emission reductions have been directed towards the most vulnerable and least responsible for the current predicament. Adaptation action and support is lagging. Climate finance is scarce, unpredictable, and hard to access. This injustice in the process threatens its very durability. Without climate justice, the whole regime could potentially collapse and lose relevance and credibility. And while indeed we would have hoped for more ambitious action on mitigation, the realities of the world we live in and the challenges we met these past 2 years made that impractical. Indeed, the G20, which concluded its work days before COP27, failed to move beyond what had been agreed at Glasgow. Yet there were some voices who thought that 197 state parties could agree by consensus on more ambition, despite backtracking by many and the absence of any serious commitment to climate finance by developed countries. Excellencies, if we as developing countries managed to restore a measure of equity to this process, it was essentially due to the unity of the Group of 77 and China, which was instrumental for delivering the balanced outcomes. This unity and our perseverance from the Bonn sessions June this year till the end of COP27 allowed the delivery of balanced outcomes that reflected the need for action, support and response to current climate impacts. It allowed the creation of funding arrangements for loss and damage and operationalized the Santiago Network, a just transition work program. An Article 2.1c dialogue calls for expanding renewable energy and delivering on oceans, forests, and ensuring that impacts on food systems and water are appropriately addressed within our process. Colleagues, such unity was enabled by all of you, under the leadership of our able G77 and China chair, Pakistan, a country that witnessed firsthand the devastating impacts of climate change. I would like to seize this opportunity to once again extend Egypt's condolences to Pakistan for the lost lives at this moment of unimaginable pain and suffering, and stress on our full support and solidarity with Pakistan. I would also like to express my personal gratitude to the Pakistani team at COP27, Her Excellency Shoukry Rahman, the Minister of Environment, Ambassador Nabil Munir, and his entire team. Excellencies, let me also highlight that the commitment shown by all developing countries through their active participation at the highest level, with more than 120 heads of state and governments, mostly from the global south, and more than 40,000 participants in the COP, make it the most attended COP ever and the largest multilateral conference of our time, has confirmed the political commitment by all our countries and delivered a clear message that we are there to deliver meaningful and balanced outcomes. The G77 and China meeting today is another opportunity to reaffirm our unity of purpose and of positions, our solidarity with each other, as well as to formulate our collective vision for tackling the existential threat of climate change. Again, I would like to commend the leadership of Pakistan throughout this past year and in preparing and hosting this meeting. I seize this opportunity to wish Cuba, our incoming G77 and China chair, all the success in the coming year, along with our assurance to them of our continued support. I thank you.